about to start. I want to take this opportunity to welcome everyone who is here today. My name is, so I want to do my introduction. My name is Moses Katamani, and I am your facilitator. Yesterday, I introduced myself. I indicated that I've been in a teaching, or how we call it, chalk fraternity for about 24 years as a teacher, as a school manager, and now as a school consultant for some time now. I also have other areas of work, and that is writing. As my people say here, by the special grace of God, I've written 6 books, which are published either online or in hard copy. And the books are on education, career, people, and business development. Education, career, people, and business development. And as I indicated already, I'm a Ghanaian and currently in Nigeria, Lagos. Now, so as I said in the prelude to today's discussion, I said that we'll be giving opportunity to people who want to make contributions, and I'm trying to observe my WhatsApp platform and also the Facebook page to know if there's somebody who is ready to make a contribution. Yeah, so somebody, okay, it's an indication that time is almost up. Yes, so if somebody would like to make a contribution, the question or contribution will have to come through the WhatsApp platform, and that is where we are going, which we are going to use for our discussion. If somebody wants to make a contribution. So if you are on the WhatsApp platform and you are willing to, I will welcome you to make the contribution. Other than that, I'll move straight forward and do my introductory summary about what we studied yesterday. Yeah, no indication of contribution, and it's like today many people are on the Facebook page more than on the WhatsApp platform. Well, that is okay. Now, so I want to go into my discussion. In other words, the training course starts right now. Now, our topic we are looking at is effective school management. Effective school management. And in my introduction yesterday, I indicated in an abstract that there are challenges that we face or you face as a teacher, how in the 21st century especially. However, the teacher is obligated to manage his or her class effectively to achieve the right result, manage the pupils and students' behavior in order to achieve the objectives of the class or the period. That is what my abstract was. Going forward, I look at the classroom management concept. I look at it from 4 dimensions. And the first one is about being able to manage the behavior of pupils and students in order to achieve your goals or your objectives. So activities that you organize to manage your class are geared, 1, to managing pupils and students' behavior. Secondly, we said that you have to manage the class and have an atmosphere good enough for teaching and learning to take place, and pupils and students should be able to participate effectively. Then we also said that school management, classroom management is a wide variety of skills and techniques that needs to be adopted in order to achieve the goal set for the class or for the period you are teaching. And finally, we indicated that school management is an art and it is a science. And on the context of science, I indicated that if we are talking about school management being science, it is a social science. And when we are able to do certain things about classroom management and it becomes regular and it can be replicated, then it becomes a science. And so those are the things that we discussed about the concept of classroom management. Moving forward, we went to look at why is it important to manage your class. In that context, we said that one, it helps improve general teaching learning skills of the teacher and also help the pupils and students achieve their academic goals within the period that you manage as a teacher. Another one is that we said classroom management helps minimize problematic situations in the class. In other words, behaviors that will distract the class. So classroom management is very important. Then we also said that it helps the teacher focus on the objectives of the process, and also if we are able to manage the class effectively, it will help the teacher to manage difficult pupils and also those who are having difficulty in the teaching and learning process. So those are the review of what we did yesterday, and I hope those who have come on board today, you follow. And I also shared on our platform that you can go to our YouTube platform or even on the Facebook platform, and you can download the first day's discussion or course, and you can look and listen to it free of charge. Now, before I continue, so yesterday we looked at one, the concept of classroom management. Secondly, we look at why classroom management is important. And now, today, we are now looking at the challenges that you face in the teaching and learning process. The challenges that the teacher faces in the teaching and learning process. I want to, first of all, want you to take note that in the educational system, there are so many challenges. There are challenges within the management system, within the school environment, but particularly when you come to the classroom itself, that is where you are going to face most of the challenges in the teaching and learning process. And today we will want to look at the challenges. In looking at the challenges, I want to take note of something which is very important. Some people think that teaching and learning, or as a teacher, teaching or facilitating a class is not a difficult thing. Not only that, some people also think that, oh, teachers have holiday, and teachers sometimes do half day. They don't do 8 hours or 9 hours. And that because of that, some people will think that, oh, the teacher doesn't have any difficulty. That is a misconception, because as a teacher, teaching is an extraordinary job. And if you don't have patience as a teacher, you may not be able to achieve the right goals and results that you are looking for. So in the first place, it is a wonderful job, extraordinary. However, the challenges are numerous in the classroom. Today, I will want to look at 7 challenges that you face in the class. 7 challenges. The first of the challenges, as you can refer to on your postcards, those who are able to download it from our WhatsApp platform, the first of the challenges that the teacher faces in the class is that some pupils and students have learning difficulties, and the teacher needs to attend to all the learning difficulties of the various pupils and students in the class, in the nursery, in the primary, in the secondary school. All of them have their varied learning difficulties, and all the pupils and students don't have the same IQ or learning abilities. This is one of the problems or challenges teachers face in the class. If they are going to succeed with the teaching and learning and achieve results, then the teacher is going to face this challenge of learning difficulty of pupils and students. In our discussion yesterday, somebody identified learning difficulties, and also while some pupils and students are special pupils and students in class. In other words, they have extreme learning difficulties, and the teacher needs to help such pupil or students in order to carry them along in the teaching and learning process. So take note, the first challenge every teacher faces in the class is that some pupils have learning difficulties that teachers need to attend to. The second challenge that teachers have in the class is that some pupils and students have problems in their homes, in their families, and they carry those problems in their mind into the class. And because of that, some pupils will not pay attention because their mind may be engaged in thinking about what happened in the home, and that they may not be able to pay attention to the teaching and learning process or the activities that are going on in the class. That is why, for example, you will realize that sometimes there are some pupils in your class. The child is doing well. Suddenly you will see that the level of the child is dropping. The performance of the child is dropping. What is the reason? There might be a challenge in the house which is affecting the child or the student. Related to that which I stated is some pupils become bullies in the classroom because of their experiences in the home. The truth is this: in some homes, some fathers are bullies. They bully their children in the house, or even their couples, their wives in the house. And as these children see this kind of thing in the house, they think it's normal. And that if you are stronger than the other, you can override the person, therefore I can bully. I can assure you, and I can stand on this and say that many of the bullying issues in our classrooms, in our schools, most of them start from the house. That is where the problem is coming from. Minute of them start from the school setting, because those that start from the school setting might be because there are some stronger guys who are trying to bully them, and they also grow out of their shells and they want to. But most of the bullying issues can be traced to the house or the home of the pupils and students. So the second problem is that the problem a teacher will face in the class is that some pupils have problems, their personal problems in the house, and that they turn out not paying attention or becoming distractive. And you will realize that it's a problem, it's a challenge. Why? The teacher, even though we learn many techniques, psychology, and what have you, the teacher cannot be an expert in everything. And that becomes a challenge when the teacher is not able to manage the situation. Now, I continue and look at the next point. And the next point is lack of effective communication of personal problems or personal needs by pupils and students. That's another challenge which affects the teaching and learning process in the class. Some pupils, with their demeanor, their character traits, their vocal, they come out, they can tell you whatever is happening to them within a twinkle of an eye. They will tell you everything that is happening to them. However, there are some pupils in the class, they are so quiet, they will not be able to tell you whatever is happening to them. Especially this one, when you go to the nursery section, that is where you find those challenges. Some of them, because of language barrier, they are not able to effectively communicate to the teacher or the facilitator, and that becomes a challenge in class. Related to that already, as I mentioned, language barrier also becomes a challenge, especially in the nursery section, that is the preschool section. That a language becomes a barrier. When you go to the primary section too, language becomes a barrier. Another example I can give is that you are in a class, a primary section, let's say primary 3 or primary 4, and you are teaching in the city, and a child is brought from the village to your class. That is what my people here will call it to be a wahala. And you, the teacher, is supposed to manage that situation and bring the child along. That is a challenge. I think everyone is following our discussion, and it's a challenge. And you, the teacher, it's like you have to know it all and do everything. That is why techniques are needed, which we'll look at later. Now, another challenge the teacher faces in the class is lack of defined rules and discipline at home. We are going back to the house, the home. Most of the time, when you are in class, you will realize that there are some pupils and students in class who are very attentive, respectful, they follow instructions, whatever you want them to do. However, there are some pupils and students who are from homes I'll call laissez-faire homes, homes that there are no rules and regulations, there are no instructions, and pupils can do anything they want, especially in the 21st century, whereby, and in the cities, where many parents don't have time for their children. They leave them under the care of homemakers, or what we are calling maids. And these are the people who manage them. And some parents also make those caretakers or nannies look as if they are not important in the face of their children. So the pupils or students will not respect the nanny or the homemaker, and they will not follow instructions. They bring those kind of laissez-faire attitude into the class, and that becomes a challenge in the class when you are teaching such pupil or students. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are following the discussion. And as we are going through the challenges, I know every one of you will be looking at the challenges in your classroom situations, the challenges you face. Some of you too, I must say, may be looking at how you were problematic in your classroom before and how you gave problem to your teacher in the classroom. So those are the situations that we are looking at, challenges that a teacher faces in the teaching and learning process in the classroom. Now, the next point I want to discuss is the issue of inadequate time to achieve teaching and learning objectives. Inadequate time. In fact, nowadays in our schools, you will realize that the times which is supposed to be given to the subjects, individual subjects, are not enough. Especially after COVID-19 2020, things become bizarre. And there are things I will not want to mention whereby some people will think I'm trying to be political. No, I'm just trying to be factual in our discussions. Now, so you see that there are subjects you are teaching. That subject might need 5 periods in a week. You are giving 3 periods. The subject might need 4 periods in a week. You are giving 2 periods. It becomes a challenge in the 21st century, even after COVID-19. You see that that's become a huge problem. And there are some which let me put that one at the back burner and let me not mention it. So we'll see that inadequate time becomes a problem, a challenge in the teaching and learning process, and that you prepare your scheme of work for the term, either trimester or a semester. You plan in a way that in the full academic year, you'll be able to cover your topics. However, because of the time, you will not be able to achieve all the objectives. And sometimes it makes some teachers rush with the teaching and learning, and they don't pay attention to some of the children who are having learning difficulties in the classroom. So time is also a challenge. Now, apart from that, we can also talk about school management. Sometimes school managers become problems to the classroom. There are some teaching and learning materials that you need in order to facilitate, to have a good teaching and learning environment to be able to do your activities, the teachers' activities, the pupils' activities that they need to perform. Sometimes some school managers, I would say, They will want to massage everything, and when you ask for materials that you need in order to teach in your class, the materials are nowhere to be found. This problem in two aspects. First, the public school. If you see the public school situation in some of our countries in Africa, it is unfortunate. Some teachers go to class, even the pupils go to class, and there are no materials to use in the teaching and learning process, especially how some governments in Africa politicize education. I have to come to it now. Politicize education, and that they say we are giving free education, and that parents don't need to buy this material, and that the materials that are supposed to be provided to the schools are not provided, but the teacher is being forced to teach in the class. That is a problem in the public school. Another one is in the private schools. Some private school owners, they don't understand the educational system or educational entrepreneurship as a social entrepreneurship. The only thing is that when the money comes, they want to put it in their pocket, they want to buy cars, and they will be enjoying the fruits of the labor of the teachers in their school. And that affects teaching and learning so much. I had to confront that situation in some schools some time ago, because how can you, yes, your school is using marker to teach, and you are expecting that the teacher should use only one marker in the whole term, and you think that teacher will be able to. It is not possible. That is a challenge. So these challenges affect the teaching and learning process in the class. Now, finally, on the problems in the class is the issue of lack of adequate support by parents and guardians. Lack of adequate support and understanding by parents and guardians. As I said in the example of some pupils having laissez-faire attitude in their homes because they bring that to the school, some parents also have that attitude and they carry that attitude into the school, and they engineer, I would say, or empower their pupils to misbehave in the school. This is not helping many teachers in their classroom, because many of such pupils and students become problematic in the class. Let me give another example. It is an example of experience, which in this context, let me bring the school management again to this issue of parents not helping. In a school system, which we will come to look at later when we are looking at the stakeholders, every stakeholder is supposed to play their role. The parents, that's parents and guardians, need to play their role. And the school management must make sure that the parents also play their role. However, because of some of the issues I discussed earlier, government politicizing education, and in the private school, the parent is thinking that, yes, I pay the school fees of my child, you cannot touch my child, and this is how I want my child to be. That is a challenge. So inadequate support by parents and guardians relating to school management, not making sure that parents abide by the rules set for them to guide their children. This also is a challenge to the school system and also the teaching and learning process in the class. So my discussions that I've gone through about the difficulties, the problems in the classroom. First, we said there are challenges of learning difficulties of some pupils and students. Two, we said pupils and students family problems which result into bullying. Then we also talked about lack of effective communication by the pupils and students to their teachers to understand them. Then I went on to look at lack of defined rules and discipline at home. Also, inadequate time to achieve the teaching and learning goals because of exigencies of time. Then we talk about limited support by some school management, and also I extended it to government in the public school system. Then finally, I look at the lack of adequate support by parents and guardians. I hope you are following the discussion, everyone. So this is our topic which talks about challenges in the school system. Challenges in the school system and also in the classroom. Challenges that the teacher faces in the teaching and learning process in the classroom. So these are the challenges. Now, I should move forward and look at the strategies that you need to adopt. However, I actually want to discuss this concept, which is very important. And our time, yes, I'm looking at the time, we will be able to discuss it. This topic, as I said earlier, is establishing rules of engagement in your classroom. Establishing rules of engagement in your classroom. That is our next topic, our next discussion. Now, as I posted on our platforms, I know some people, when they see this topic, they will be saying, rules of engagement are for the military. And the role of engagement is about how they conduct themselves, and why should we apply this to the classroom management. Now, as I said in the beginning, I will go through this discussion, and I hope that every one of you will be able to understand my position on rules of engagement. So, in the first place, rules of engagement. Even though rules of engagement is a concept in the military, in the forces, whereby instructions, directions are given for the personnel to follow, we must also know that in every human endeavor, there must be rules and regulations governing our relationship, and this must also happen in the classroom, in the teaching and learning process. Now, I have three definitions or definitions of the concept of rules of engagement. The first one is by Britannica.com. It says that a military directive meant to describe the circumstances under which ground, naval, or air force will enter into a continual combat with opposing forces. Now, formally, it refers to the order issued by combatant military authority. So, if in military term, when we talk about rules of engagement, that instruction is given by a higher authority. 2, Lexicon says that Rules of engagement is a directive issued by a military authority specifying the circumstances and limitations under which forces will engage in combat with enemy forces. In this context, to circumstances, directives, so there is somebody who must give directives in the process for the rules of engagement which will be applied by personnel in combat or in other circumstances. The last one is by Wikipedia, and Wikipedia says rules of engagement are internal rules or directives offered military forces that define the circumstances, conditions, degree, and manner in which the use of force or action might be construed as proactive and may be applied. So in rules of engagement, the term is initial as ROE, rules of engagement. So in rules of engagement, there is somebody who gives directive. And that directive, in my analysis and review of it, become what in our system as teachers become codes of conduct. Code of conduct which you, the teacher, must follow in order to achieve the goal set in your class. Code of conduct. Now, in looking at this, I try to look at some angles of it, which are my observation. And my observation, as I said already, one is a direction given by a higher authority, one. So in the educational system, there are higher authorities who instruct us, who have the know-how to instruct us about what we are supposed to do. Two, directives are focused on specific circumstances. So in your class, there are circumstances that you need to apply some rules of engagement. Then we must also look at when giving rules of engagement, you must know where, when, and how the rules will apply. That becomes you having the knowledge of the rules, and you must know how to apply it to be able to achieve results in the teaching and learning process. So rules are there. You must know how, where, and when to use them. The next one is that rules of engagement has some discretionary powers. Now, so when the directives are given to the personnel, the discretionary powers are there to use. However, you must be conscious to make sure that you don't violate the rules of engagement, and you are causing harm to somebody who is innocent in the combat. Then I want to say the next one is that in rules of engagement, you as a personnel are directed or informed of the use of specific directives. So there are specific directives in the rules of engagement. Looking at all this, I come to this realization that we as teachers, is true, there are situations that we face and we complain about the situations. However, we must also, if we are going to achieve our goals, then we must also come to these, adopt rules of engagement as managers of our classrooms. As managers of our classroom, You are the manager, the higher authority in your class. You are giving rules of engagement from above, which are the policies, directives, decisions by the higher authority, either by government, school management authorities or officials, then school management within the schools, within the confines of the school, either in the public or the private school. You are giving rules and directives. You must now come to adopt ways to be able to manage your class. In doing that, I have identified that many of the time, we have to be frank with ourselves. We as teachers or teachers will want children to abide by some rules, however, they themselves cannot abide by it. I want to say that in teaching and learning, that is why I say it's extraordinary. There are things some other people, even parents, teachers can do, parents can do in their home, but you as a teacher in the classroom, you cannot do it. If you do it, it is affecting the pupils and students. Sometimes you apply that rule to one child, it affects the other child. So in this, I will want to say, first of all, in order to effectively manage your class, the first thing we are looking at is applying rules of engagement to the pupils, one, and secondly, apply rules of engagement to yourself as the classroom manager or the higher authority in the class, which the pupils and students are looking up to. In this, I classify it in two. First one is rules of engagement for your pupils and students. That is rules of engagement for the learners. You must have rules of engagement for them. And for the pupil, and secondly, you must have rules of engagement for yourself as a teacher in order to achieve the desired goals and objectives of your class. So these are two things that we are going to discuss within this limited time. So I'll try as much as possible and look at them. And as I said, the material is so much. However, I'm trying to decode it and for us to have a nice time and discussion. And if you want, you can have access to the material, full material. For this course, for the 3 days, is about 10 pages, and you can read it and you can try and understand more after all the discussions within the course. So the first rule of engagement every teacher needs to have for his or her class is that you must identify rules that your pupils and students have to abide by. Rules that your pupils and students must abide by. Now, these rules of engagement, as I noted, it depends on the level of the children. And I have to do something. So, yeah. Okay. These rules of engagement will vary from class to class. A nursery rule of engagement or preschool will be different from that of primary and that of secondary school and other view. So first, apply rules to the children and evenly apply the rules without discrimination. What I want to take note of is factual, is that some some teachers are discriminatory in their class, and because of discrimination, they are not able to effectively manage their class. So apply rules of engagement evenly without discrimination. Two, so let me say before that, if in the nursery, how do you apply rules? Auntie doesn't like this. If you do this, auntie will not like it. When auntie is talking, Pupils must listen. Do you hear me? They will say yes. Then sometimes the pupils themselves become guard against each other. Some of them say, auntie, this person is talking. They know the rules. By that, gradually, you will realize that most of the children will be falling in line and you will be able to have effective teaching and learning in your class. The next one I want to say is that when you are going to apply punishment in the rule of engagement, the punishment must be even, and that one person will not do something in class and you will not punish that person, but when some other person is doing the same thing, you will punish that one. If you do that, the children will see that there is discrimination in your class. Therefore, it will create a problem for you and you will have it difficult to manage your class. The next one is that when we say first apply rules, make the children know that these are your rules. The second one is that let them know the punishment. That's the rule of engagement. The next one, the third one is that assure the pupils and students that the rules apply without discrimination. I think I even indicated it already. They apply without discrimination. And make sure that you don't discriminate, whereby the children will come back at you. Now, let me give you an example. I went to a class observing a teacher, and after the observation, I went back to discuss with the school head concerning some of the challenges that the teachers face in class. And in discussing this in the class, she said, yes, what that problem is because the teacher is discriminatory in class. She more or less loves some of the children than the other. And she said that in her class, some of them, because the rules are supposed to be even and there should not be discrimination, sometimes a child can be bold and tell you that, auntie, you don't love me. Then when you, she said, the pupil said it. When she asked why, he said, no, when so and so person does this, you did this, but when I did this, you punish me. That's discrimination. So teachers must be conscious to know that the rule must apply even in the teaching and learning process. The next one is reward. It's a rule. There must be reward for everything done. The rewards we say is motivation. The motivation can be positive and it can also be negative. When you apply positive reward, make sure that it's even. When you are happy with a particular child because it is his or her birthday, when it comes to another person celebrating her birthday, make sure you are happy with that child also, so that the children will not see and think that, oh, you like somebody more than him or her. If you do that, you have challenge in your class. Even the best students you have in your class, your best students, if they realize that there is something like discrimination, you have a challenging time. Especially, I know there are different ways of raising pupils and students. The Ghana example is different from the Nigerian example. And Kenyan example may be different from South Africa example and many other locations that our trainees today are. What I'm trying to emphasize is that when you apply rules of engagement, make sure that it is even. When you are happy with one child, make sure you are happy with the other. And the last one I want to say is this, that when you punish a child for a misconduct, don't apply and the troublesome child begins to change. And when the child begins to change, then he or she does something good. You say, you have done this thing, but tomorrow you do something else. You are demoralizing the child, and that child will not like it. Children, as we the adults, as we don't want people to remind us about our bad mistakes in the past, so also the children will not be happy when you refer back to the bad things that they do in the past. Therefore, you as a teacher in your class, make sure that you don't remind your children about their past. When they are improving in class, you should apply the role of engagement, encouraging them, motivating them. That is a rule. So it becomes a rule in your class. And anytime anything is happening, children know that auntie or uncle, as in our place here, will say, don't like what you are doing. And somebody in our other jurisdiction say, Mr. So and so or Madam so and so don't like this, therefore don't do it. It becomes a rule of engagement. Before you realize it is growing. Before you become, it become what we call a culture. So it becomes a classroom culture for the pupils and students. And mind you, sometimes when it happens like that, what will be happening is that when the children are going to another class, or there's exchange of baton whereby another teacher will take over, the pupils will be reminding other children who be coming to your class that this teacher doesn't like this teacher doesn't like this, because you have applied rules of engagement to the pupils and students, and they are ready to follow. Now, so that is rules of engagement for the pupils and students to follow. What about you, the teacher, the facilitator? What you do for pupils, make sure you want pupils to do for you, make sure you do same to them. So in the first place, for teachers' rules of engagement, even though it is not the pupils who are giving you the rules, you are making the rules apply to yourself. It becomes the moral behavior or your trait, and the pupils will know. In doing that, these are the things you as a teacher need to do as a rule of engagement, or the conduct that you have to put in place for yourself. 1, try as much as possible to always be in class. Make sure you are time conscious. If you are time conscious, it becomes rule. You give the children that you must make sure that you are in class before I enter, 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, if you don't enter the class, when you come, I will punish you. There are different punishments you will look at. Now, that is one of the rules I apply. Yes, in those days, I applied a cane, but when I am coming down, there are other principles that I adopted. One of them is that when I was in the secondary school, I know one or two of my students are online now, they are with me. Now, when I take a class, a subject, the first day of engagement, I give them the rules of engagement. And I'll tell them that if I am not in class by 5 minutes after the time, come and call me. But they know that 5 minutes after the time, I'll be in the class. Sometimes I'll be waiting at the doorsteps for the teacher who is supposed to come out. Now, when they know, and because in the secondary school system, they take different courses in departments. And when they know that Mr. Katamani is coming to class for either government, social studies, English language, and what have you, when they know the time is up, they will be running into the class to make sure that they're in class before I enter, because they know if I am in class 5 minutes after time, they know that there will be rules applied to them. That is one of the examples I can give you. Now, In the nursery, when the child does something, you should let the child know why this thing is not good. You apply it. So the teacher must apply a rule to him or herself. If you are a classroom teacher, the rules must be applied, that the children will know that my teacher will not like this, and it is consistent, and the children will always want to pay attention to you. Yes, our time is going, but I think we'll be able to do justice to this topic. The next one is that you, the teacher, must always try as much as possible to be a role model to your pupils and students. Now we say we are in a liberal world. Yes. However, whatever you, the teacher, does, the children see it. So your way of dressing speaks a lot about you as a teacher. And what I want to say in this context as a rule of engagement is that if you as a teacher, you can conduct yourself well, and your appearance, everything is attractive and moderate to the pupils, you will become, if their parents are their first role model in the house, you will become their second role model. If in your class, the pupils are looking at some musician or somebody who they might not want to become to, but they become their role model, you will know that there's something wrong in your class. So you, the teacher, must be moderate in your communication and in your dressing. That's what we call verbal and non-verbal communication. How you speak to the pupils, how you dress, your appearance, all of them affect your class. And it should be your own role that this is how I have to be, and be decent, and the children will follow. That is our second point. The next point is that it must be your personal role to prepare effectively before going to class. Even though it is a general code of conduct that you have to prepare, as a teacher in the class, it should be your rule of engagement in the class that this is how I must go. I must prepare well before I go to class. And if I do that, the children will not have problem with me. Some teachers sometimes, I say, all days are not normal. Yes, it's true. But sometimes you realize that you did not prepare adequately. You go to class, the children ask questions, you are found wanting, then you, instead of to be able to manage it and say, oh, okay, this question, no problem, I'll answer that question. Or you throw back. That is the teacher's strategy. Throw it back to the pupil and say, can somebody answer this question? Oh, okay. If you don't see any action, they say, okay, let's push it to the next lesson, and we'll discuss it. You're able to manage it. But when you vent your anger on the child because you did not prepare well, that becomes problematic for your class. So you will not be able to manage the pupils and students in the class because you did not prepare. So as a teacher, all the time, you need to prepare to be able to have the right engagement activities, prepare your materials, and you go to class, you will be able to manage it. And you will be able to manage even the difficult pupils and students that you think are in your class, or those who have the learning difficulty, you'll be able to manage them. Then the next point I want to put out there is that look out for pupils and students who have learning difficulties in the teaching and learning process. It should be your rule that I should try as much as possible to carry along all my pupils and students. The weaker ones, I should be able to engage them in activities that will help them to follow the class. And when they do something good, your reward is there already. They know the reward. Now, and you, the teacher, if you prepare well and you know what you have to do, you will be able to identify those children who have learning difficulties. You will be able to position them at particular places that they will be so that they can hear you. You have to know when we are talking about learning difficulty, some children have problem with their eye. They cannot see afar, so you have to draw them close to the writing board. Some people have long sight, short sight. Some children have hearing impairment, and you have to help them to position them at where they have to be. And if so, these are your own plan to make sure that you will not leave any child behind. I'll talk about some other things later when we come to that aspect, which I talk about tips for dynamism. So it's very important you as a teacher identify the problem children and see how you accommodate them. You need to accommodate all of them. You cannot focus on the bright ones, they do well. What about the ones that are not doing well? Another thing I want to say in this context is that, yes, our time is up. I'm going to take another 5 minutes and I'll conclude on this. Another thing I want us to note in this discussion is that there are different concepts about learning impairment, IQ, and what have you. But there is one that I want to set as an example for teachers here. And if I have the privilege of training you on classroom management, is because somebody worked on me to be able to come out of my learning difficulties and be able to pull through and become somebody for myself. Now, in the teaching and learning process, now I'm talking about IQ. You will realize that there are two angles. There are some who have poor IQ and they have to be managed in a separate way. But there are research which show that there are some pupils and students who, when they are growing up, they are not very bright, but when they grow up, they catch up, and they become very bright. Now, this is the example I'm going to give you, and I'm going to mention the name of a teacher who helped me out. Now, I had a problem of slow learning, and going through school, I attended a middle school system before I went back to GSS, and in fact, I ever had the last position in my class before. I know many of you will laugh at it, but it's true. Now, the realization was that I was a slow learner. By the time I was discovered and helped out, I was almost getting out of the middle school system. And I was helped out by my father and this teacher, Mr. Ernest Abu. I always mention his name because he's somebody who has done a lot for me and raising me in different ways. Mr. Ernest Amu, he's from Ghana and he's from Saviepe, Bogame. He helped me out with my learning difficulties, and he had a discussion with my father that with what he has seen about me, I need to go back to GSS. He and my father discussed me, and one day my father said, "You are going back to GSS." After I completed middle school and I had my middle school leaving certificate. So I had to go back to school and GSS, go back 3 steps backwards. I had it. Going through the three steps backwards, that takes me through the GSS system, and it will surprise you that I had distinction when I wrote my GSS exam. I had distinction and I went to secondary school going through, and today, by the grace of God, I'm sure of myself that I can do something meaningful for myself. So what am I trying to say to teachers here? We need to be patient with the pupils and students. We need to be able to identify their learning difficulties and be able to help them. And finally, as I said, I want to emphasize my time is up now. Emphasize that never draw rules of engagement for your pupils, and you as a child, the teacher in the classroom don't have rules of engagement and guiding you. I know this discussion is bulky, And there are so many things that many of you will be thinking through. And I know that when we continue to look at it, we'll see that it is very, very important. And at the end of it, what I want to say again is that this is just like conventions, personal conventions. And mind you, in my discussion of this, I'm trying to write on rules of engagement and for teachers, and I'm trying to look at our African continent, and because things are getting difficult. And something I want you to take note of is that whatever is happening in the classroom, don't vent your anger that you have derived from either school managers, the parents of the teachers, or what government is not doing, or the school manager, the private school owner is doing. Don't vent your anger on the pupils and students. If you are doing that, you are not applying the right rules of engagement. I think we have come to the end of this discussion. I hope that I'll be able to have my calls through, and questions that people will want to ask, I will address the questions. I said it that this discussion has been bulky, but thank God we have gone through, and I want to look at my WhatsApp questions. Yes, WhatsApp questions. I want to see if there are questions. It is true some people had challenges, but they were able to pull through, and they went through to the Facebook platform. Now, so not much questions on the WhatsApp platform, but let me look at let me see. Yeah, my technical people, are there questions? Yes, let me see. Okay, not much. Okay. I have to apologize to some of the people who were having difficulty in getting through. My calls here too are not going through. I don't know why. But I want to come to the conclusion of this discussion. I know today has been stressful, and today what we have discussed is about first of all, we look at problems in the school setting, particularly in the classroom. And we have identified that some of them are from the class, some are from their home, and they are challenges that we face. Then I look at rules of engagement. Yes, we said rules of engagement are for the military. However, if you want to be successful as a teacher in your class, you must have rules for your pupils, and you must have rules for yourself in order to manage to achieve the objectives of your classroom. I hope today's discussion has been effective, even though I have to rush through some of the points, as we did yesterday. If you have any question, you can still put it on our WhatsApp platform, and I will attend to it, and it will be a discussion throughout to tomorrow. Finally, those who want to have certificates, tomorrow you will know how to get the certificate and also how to get the learning material. On this note, I want to thank all of you for following me. I know tomorrow will not be hectic like today. And tomorrow, we are going to look at now strategies that you need to apply. Already we have one strategy, which I want you to take note of. And that strategy is rules of engagement for the pupils and students, and rules of engagement for yourself. So we will continue tomorrow. We'll look at the strategies, and we'll also look at the tips for dynamism. I want to thank you all for having this time with us. It has been wonderful, and some of the comments are positive, and we want to appreciate all of you for being part of it. Don't miss tomorrow, because tomorrow is the concluding. And tomorrow I am going to give a surprise to 3 people. I'm going to give free certificates to 3 people, and I'm going to give the materials to 3 people. 3, so they are going to be about 6 people. Be on the platform, and I'm going to ask my technical people to give me those numbers, especially those who get in early. We'll look at that, and we'll announce the people, and we'll help you to take the certificate. Want to say thank you all for coming, and remember, at Kambel Masterclass, we anchor vision and mission. Thank you so much.